The crystal champagne glass felt cold against Zara's fingers as she watched her husband Nathan stand up at their corner table in the elegant restaurant. 24 other diners continued their conversations, unaware that the beautiful African-American woman in the emerald dress was about to have her world destroyed. The soft piano music played in the background, the same song that had been playing at their wedding reception 5 years ago. Nathan had requested it specifically for their anniversary dinner, and Zara had thought it was romantic. "To my beautiful wife Zara," Nathan began, his voice carrying across their intimate table. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his expensive suit immaculate. He looked every bit the successful businessman that he was. "5 years ago you became my everything." Zara smiled, raising her own glass. She had spent hours getting ready for this evening, choosing the dress Nathan had always said looked stunning on her, styling her natural hair in elegant curls that framed her face. She wore the diamond earrings he had given her for their first anniversary, the ones that caught the light and sparkled like stars. "You gave me everything I could have wanted in a wife," Nathan continued, and something in his tone made Zara's smile falter slightly. There was a coldness there, a finality that made her stomach clench with sudden dread. "Nathan?" she whispered, but he wasn't finished. Instead of touching his glass to hers, Nathan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. The sound of paper crinkling seemed impossibly loud in that moment, drowning out the piano, the conversations, even her own heartbeat. "But now it's time for both of us to move on," he said, placing the envelope on the white tablecloth between them. "These are divorce papers, Zara. I've already signed them." The words hit her like a physical blow. The champagne glass slipped from her numb fingers, shattering against the floor in a spray of crystal and golden liquid. The other diners turned to look, but Zara couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what was happening. "I don't understand," she managed to whisper, her voice breaking. Nathan sat back down, his expression calm, almost relieved. "I've been seeing someone else, Zara. Rebecca from the office. We're in love and we're going to be together." Rebecca. The name hit her like another blow. Nathan's business partner, the woman Zara had welcomed into their home countless times. The woman who had sat at their dinner table, who had gone on double dates with them, who had been a bridesmaid at their wedding. For how long? The question came out as barely a breath. 8 months, Nathan said without hesitation, without shame. "We didn't plan it, but it happened. And now we want to make it official." 8 months. Zara's mind reeled, trying to remember the past 8 months. The late nights Nathan claimed he was working. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way he had grown distant, cold, always finding excuses to avoid intimacy. She had blamed it on stress, on the pressure of growing their marketing firm. She had been supportive, understanding, patient. She had been a fool. "Why here?" she asked, her voice stronger now, though her hands were shaking. "Why at our anniversary dinner?" "Because I wanted to do it somewhere public, somewhere you wouldn't make a scene," Nathan said, and there was something cruel in his smile now. "I know how you value your reputation, Zara. Your dignity." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. He had planned this, orchestrated it down to the last detail. The song, the restaurant, the timing. He had turned their most romantic anniversary into a weapon to destroy her. "Where is she?" Zara asked, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "Rebecca. Where is she?" Nathan glanced toward the bar, and Zara followed his gaze. There, sitting alone with a glass of wine, was Rebecca. She was a petite white woman with blonde hair and cold blue eyes, wearing a red dress that Zara had helped her pick out for a client dinner last month. Rebecca raised her glass slightly, a toast to Zara's destruction, and smiled. In that moment, sitting in the wreckage of her marriage with broken glass at her feet and divorce papers on the table, Zara felt something shift inside her. The shock was fading, replaced by something harder, colder, more determined. She stood up slowly, her movements graceful despite the chaos around her. Every eye in the restaurant was on them now, but she didn't care about her reputation or her dignity anymore. Those things belonged to the woman she had been an hour ago, the woman who had trusted her husband, who had believed in their marriage, who had been naive enough to think that love was enough. "You want me to sign these now?" she asked, picking up the envelope. "The sooner the better," Nathan said. "We can make this easy for both of us." Zara nodded, opening the envelope and scanning the papers inside. Her name was already typed in various places, Nathan's signature bold and confident at the bottom. She noticed that the papers were dated from 2 weeks ago. He had been planning this for weeks, maybe longer. "I'll need time to review these with my lawyer," she said finally, folding the papers and putting them back in the envelope. "Zara, don't make this harder than it has to be," Nathan said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. He had expected tears, begging, maybe anger. He hadn't expected this calm, controlled response. "Oh, Nathan," Zara said, her voice soft but carrying a promise that made him shift uncomfortably in his seat. "I'm not going to make this hard." She picked up her purse and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking against the polished floor. As she passed Rebecca at the bar, she stopped. "Congratulations," she said quietly. "I hope you know what you're getting." Rebecca's smile wavered slightly, but she said nothing. Zara walked out into the night air, leaving behind the broken glass, the divorce papers, and the life she had thought was hers. She had no idea what came next, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nathan and Rebecca had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated her. Zara's hands were steady as she inserted the key into the front door of the house she had shared with Nathan for 3 years. The porch light cast everything in harsh shadows, making the white columns and blue shutters look foreign, like a house she had never seen before. It was past midnight, but sleep was the furthest thing from her mind. The house was empty. Nathan wouldn't be coming home tonight, probably ever again. The silence felt different now, not peaceful but ominous, like the quiet before a storm. She kicked off her heels and walked barefoot through the hardwood hallway, past the family photos that now felt like lies mounted on the walls. There she was in those pictures, smiling and happy, her arm around a man who had been planning her destruction even as the camera clicked. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of water and forced herself to think clearly. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold clarity that surprised her. Nathan had made this move thinking she would crumble, that she would sign the papers and disappear quietly from his life. He had chosen her specifically because he thought she was weak, controllable, someone who would never fight back. He was wrong. Zara climbed the stairs to their home office, the room they had shared while building their marketing business together. Nathan's desk was clean, too clean. She had noticed it before but hadn't thought much of it. Now it seemed suspicious. She turned on her laptop and logged into their business accounts. Henderson Marketing Solutions had been their joint dream, built from nothing into a company worth $2 million. They were equal partners, at least on paper. But as Zara scrolled through the recent transactions, her blood grew cold. Money had been moving. Large amounts transferred to accounts she didn't recognize. Client payments had been redirected. Business expenses that she had never approved. The pattern went back months, and every suspicious transaction had one thing in common: Rebecca's digital signature. Zara printed out page after page of financial records, her printer working overtime in the quiet house. The picture that emerged was devastating. Nathan and Rebecca hadn't just been having an affair. They had been systematically stealing from their own company, draining assets and hiding money in preparation for the divorce. But that wasn't the worst part. As Zara dug deeper into the files, she found something that made her stomach turn. Rebecca had been overbilling clients, charging for services that were never provided, and pocketing the difference. The Jameson account, their biggest client, had been charged for a full rebranding campaign that consisted of nothing more than a new logo. The Mitchell campaign had been billed for market research that was never conducted. They weren't just stealing from the business. They were stealing from their clients. Zara's phone buzzed with a text message. "Nathan, hope you're okay. We can talk tomorrow about the details. This doesn't have to be ugly." She stared at the message, amazed by his audacity. He was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to manage her response to his betrayal. She deleted the message without responding. Her phone rang. Rebecca's name appeared on the screen. Against every instinct, Zara answered. "Zara, I know this is awkward." Rebecca's voice was artificially sweet, the same tone she had used at countless business meetings. "But I wanted you to know that Nathan and I never meant for this to happen." "Really?" Zara's voice was calm, giving nothing away. "We tried to fight it, but sometimes love just happens, you know? I hope someday you can understand." "I understand more than you think," Zara said. There was a pause. "Nathan said you took the divorce papers." "That's good. We can all move forward now." "Actually, Rebecca, I have a question about some of the business accounts." Silence stretched between them. When Rebecca spoke again, her voice was different, sharper. "What kind of question?" "The Jameson account. I'm looking at the billing records and something seems off." "I don't know what you mean." $40,000 for market research that I can't find any record of. Can you help me understand that?" The silence was longer this time. "Zara, I think you're upset about Nathan and you're looking for problems that aren't there." "Am I?" Zara asked. "Because I'm also seeing payments to consulting firms that don't seem to exist. Invoices for services that were never provided. A very interesting pattern that goes back about 8 months. I don't have to listen to this," Rebecca said, but there was panic creeping into her voice now. You're right, Zara agreed. You don't. But the IRS might be interested in listening. And the state attorney general. And our clients. Rebecca hung up. Zara sat back in her chair, feeling something like satisfaction for the first time all evening. Nathan and Rebecca thought they had been so clever, so careful. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that Zara was just the pretty face of the business, that she didn't understand the financial side, that she wouldn't know how to read the records. They had forgotten that she had an MBA from Northwestern. They had forgotten that she had built this business just as much as Nathan had. They had forgotten that she was smart, capable, and now very, very angry. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. James Mitchell, attorney at law. She had met him at a business networking event 6 months ago. He specialized in corporate fraud and divorce law. At the time, she had filed his card away thinking she might need legal advice for the business someday. She had never imagined she would need it for this. The clock on her computer read 1:47 a.m., too late to call tonight. But first thing in the morning she would make that call. And then Nathan and Rebecca would learn what happened when you tried to destroy someone who refused to stay down. Zara gathered up all the printed financial records and locked them in her desk drawer. Tomorrow the real fight would begin. Tonight she would let Nathan and Rebecca think they had won. It would be the last peaceful sleep they would have for a very long time. James Mitchell's law office was located on the 32nd floor of a gleaming downtown building, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a spectacular view of the city. Zara sat across from his mahogany desk, a stack of financial documents spread between them, feeling more in control than she had since that devastating dinner 2 days ago. James was younger than she had expected, probably in his early 30s, with kind brown eyes and an easy smile that made her feel comfortable despite the circumstances. He had agreed to see her immediately when she called, canceling his morning appointments to accommodate her emergency. I have to say, Zara, in 15 years of practicing law, I've rarely seen fraud this blatant, James said, flipping through the bank statements she had brought. Your husband and his partner weren't just stealing. They were practically advertising it. What do you mean? Zara asked, leaning forward. Look at this. James pointed to a series of transactions highlighted in yellow. They created a shell company called Marketing Solutions Consulting, and have been billing your clients for services, then transferring the money to this fake company. The name is so similar to your real business that most clients probably didn't notice the difference on their credit card statements. Zara studied the documents, her anger growing with each revelation. How much money are we talking about? From what I can see here, at least $300,000 over the past 8 months. But I suspect there's more. We need to do a full forensic audit. $300,000, Zara repeated, the number hitting her like a physical blow. That's money stolen from our clients. And from you, James added. As a 50% owner of Henderson Marketing Solutions, half of that money was yours. But here's the thing, Zara. This goes beyond simple theft. They've committed mail fraud, wire fraud, and tax evasion. These are federal crimes. Zara felt a mixture of horror and satisfaction. Nathan and Rebecca had dug themselves into a hole so deep they might never climb out. There's something else, James continued, pulling out another set of documents. I ran a preliminary check on your business assets. Your husband has been trying to transfer ownership of several major accounts to Rebecca's name only. He's also attempted to change the business registration to exclude you as a partner. Can he do that? Not legally. Not without your signature. But the fact that he tried shows premeditation. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment affair, Zara. This was a calculated plan to steal your business and leave you with nothing. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture that was both clearer and more devastating than Zara had imagined. Nathan hadn't just fallen in love with another woman. He had partnered with her to systematically destroy everything Zara had worked for. What are my options? She asked. James leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. We have several paths forward. First, we file for divorce and fight for what's rightfully yours. Second, we report the fraud to the authorities and let them handle the criminal side. Third, we notify your clients about what's been happening and help them recover their stolen money. All of the above, Zara said without hesitation. That's what I hoped you'd say. But I need you to understand something, Zara. This is going to get ugly. Your husband and Rebecca are going to fight back hard when they realize what we're doing. They might try to blame you, claim you were involved in the fraud. Are you prepared for that? Zara thought about Nathan's smug smile at the restaurant, Rebecca's mocking toast from across the room. Let them try. James smiled and she could see why he was successful. There was something reassuring about his confidence, something that made her believe she wasn't fighting this battle alone. Good. Now, I need you to do something for me. Go home and secure any business documents you have access to. Bank statements, client files, contracts, email communications. Everything. And don't let Nathan know what you're doing. He doesn't live there anymore, Zara said. He moved out yesterday while I was here meeting with you. Even better. But be careful, Zara. When people realize their crimes are about to be exposed, they can become desperate. Desperate people do unpredictable things. As if summoned by his words, Zara's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. Speak of the devil, she murmured, showing James the phone. Answer it, he advised. But put it on speaker. I want to hear what he has to say. Zara accepted the call. Hello, Nathan. Zara, thank God. Where are you? I went by the house and you weren't there. I had some errands to run. Look, I know this is hard, but we need to talk about the business. There are some client issues that need immediate attention. Zara met James's eyes across the desk. He was taking notes, recording the conversation on his phone. What kind of client issues? She asked. The Jameson account is threatening to audit their bills. They're asking questions about some consulting fees. I think there might have been an error in our billing system. An error? Zara repeated. Yeah, you know how these automated systems can be. Sometimes charges get duplicated or applied to the wrong accounts. I just need access to the office computer to straighten it out. The audacity was breathtaking. He was trying to get her to help him cover up the evidence of his own crimes. I'll handle it, Zara said. Actually, I think I should take care of this one personally. The clients know me better and... I said I'll handle it, Nathan. There was a pause. Zara, you're not thinking clearly right now. I understand you're upset about the divorce, but you can't let your emotions affect the business. My emotions are perfectly under control. Are they? Because Rebecca mentioned that you called her the other night asking strange questions about billing records. That's not like you. Zara felt her anger spike. They had been talking about her, planning their next move, probably laughing about how easily they had fooled her. I'll talk to you later, Nathan. Zara, wait. She hung up and looked at James, who was still writing notes. Well, he said, looking up with a grim smile. That was very interesting. Your husband just admitted to billing fraud on a recorded phone call. He did. He acknowledged that there were billing errors, specifically mentioned duplicate charges and incorrect applications. In legal terms, he just confessed to wire fraud. And the fact that he's trying to access the office computers suggests he knows there's evidence there that could incriminate him. Zara felt a surge of satisfaction. Nathan thought he was so smart, but he had just handed her the rope to hang himself with. What's our next move? She asked. James was already reaching for his phone. We get to those computers before he does. The Henderson Marketing Solutions office was located in a converted warehouse in the trendy arts district, all exposed brick and polished concrete floors. Zara had always loved the space, the way the afternoon light streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the creative chaos of their growing business. Now, as she unlocked the front door at 7 in the morning, it felt like a crime scene. James was already waiting in his car across the street, along with a forensic accountant named Patricia Wells who specialized in corporate fraud cases. The plan was simple: secure all the evidence before Nathan or Rebecca could destroy it. Remember, James had told her the night before, act natural. If anyone asks, you're just coming in early to catch up on work. Don't let on that you suspect anything. But as Zara stepped into the office, she realized that Nathan had already been there. His desk was completely empty. The computer was gone, along with all his files, personal items, and even the coffee mug she had given him for his birthday. It was as if Nathan Henderson had never worked there at all. Rebecca's desk told a different story. It was still cluttered with client files, promotional materials, and the half-dead succulent that Zara had given her as a housewarming gift. Rebecca's computer was still there, password protected but intact. Zara's own workstation was untouched, which struck her as odd until she realized why. Nathan didn't think she was smart enough to figure out what they had done. He wasn't worried about her computer because he didn't think she would know what to look for. His mistake. Zara powered up her computer and began systematically copying files to an external hard drive. Client contracts, billing records, email communications, financial statements. She worked quickly but carefully, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. How's it going? N's desk cleared out. Ours computer's still here. Getting everything I can. Good. We're here when you need us. Zara was in the middle of copying Rebecca's computer files when she heard the front door open. Her heart hammered against her ribs as footsteps approached across the polished concrete floor. "Zara? What are you doing here so early?" Rebecca's voice carried a note of surprise, but underneath it was something else. Suspicion. "Catching up on the Jameson account," Zara said without looking up from the computer. "Nathan mentioned they had some billing questions." "All right." Rebecca moved closer, and Zara could smell her perfume, the same expensive scent she had worn to every business dinner they had shared. "I actually took care of that yesterday. Called them personally and straightened everything out." "Really?" Zara finally looked up, meeting Rebecca's blue eyes with a steady gaze. "What did you tell them?" "Just that there had been a clerical error. You know how it is with these big accounts. They see one number they don't recognize and they panic." Rebecca was good, Zara had to give her that. Her expression was calm, professional, the same look she wore in client meetings. But there was tension around her eyes, a tightness that hadn't been there before. "That's great," Zara said. "I'm glad you could resolve it so quickly." "Nathan and I work well together," Rebecca said, and there was definitely a message in those words. "We're very efficient." The comment hit its mark, but Zara didn't flinch. Instead she smiled. "I'm sure you are." Rebecca moved to her own desk, but Zara noticed that she kept glancing over, watching what Zara was doing. The external hard drive was hidden behind her monitor, still copying files, but the progress bar was only at 60%. "So," Rebecca said, settling into her chair, "how are you handling everything? The divorce, I mean. It must be difficult." "I'm managing," Zara replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Nathan feels terrible about how everything happened. He never wanted to hurt you." The lie was so brazen that Zara almost laughed. Nathan had planned her humiliation down to the smallest detail, from the restaurant choice to the timing of his announcement. But she kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure he does." "The thing is," Rebecca continued, "Nathan and I have been talking, and we think it might be best if you step back from the day-to-day operations of the business. Just temporarily until the divorce is finalized. You understand." There it was. The real reason Rebecca was here so early. They weren't just trying to steal the business assets. They were trying to push her out entirely. "Step back how?" Zara asked. "Well, you're obviously going through a lot right now. Emotional stress can affect judgment, decision-making. It might be better for everyone if Nathan and I handled the client relationships for a while." Zara pretended to consider this, all while the hard drive continued copying behind her monitor. 75%. "That's very thoughtful of you," she said finally. "But I think I'll be fine." Rebecca's smile became strained. "Zara, I don't think you understand. This isn't really a request." "What do you mean?" "Nathan has been carrying most of the workload for months. The clients trust him. They know him. If this turns into some kind of bitter divorce battle, it could hurt the business. We can't let that happen." 85%. "So you want me to just walk away from the company I helped build?" "Not walk away. Step back. There's a difference." "Is there?" Rebecca's mask was slipping now, revealing something harder underneath. "Look, Zara, I know this is painful. But you need to face reality. Nathan and I are together now. We're partners in every sense of the word. This business is our future." "And what about my future?" "You'll figure something out. You're a smart woman." 95%. Zara stood up slowly, ejecting the hard drive and slipping it into her purse in one smooth motion. "You're right, Rebecca. I am a smart woman." Something in her tone made Rebecca sit up straighter. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm not going anywhere. This is my business too, and I'm going to fight for it." "Zara, you're making a mistake." "Am I?" Zara gathered her things, moving toward the door. "We'll see." As she reached the exit, Rebecca called after her. "You can't win this, you know. Nathan has connections, resources. You're just one person." Zara turned back, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she smiled with genuine happiness. "That's where you're wrong, Rebecca. I'm not alone." She walked out into the morning sunlight, where James and Patricia were waiting by their car. The external hard drive in her purse contained everything they needed to destroy Nathan and Rebecca's carefully constructed lies. The hunt was about to begin. The Federal Building downtown was an imposing structure of gray granite and mirrored glass, its clean lines and sharp angles suggesting the serious business conducted within its walls. Zara sat in a sterile conference room on the 14th floor, watching Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez review the evidence they had presented. Agent Rodriguez was a small woman with silver-streaked hair and intelligent dark eyes that missed nothing. She had been investigating corporate fraud for 12 years, and her reputation for thoroughness was legendary. When James had called to arrange this meeting, she had cleared her entire afternoon. "This is impressive work," Agent Rodriguez said, closing the thick folder of financial documents. "Your husband and Ms. Rebecca Thompson have been busy. $327,000 in fraudulent billing over 8 months. Shell companies, false invoices, tax evasion. They've violated about 6 different federal statutes." "What happens now?" Zara asked. "Now we build a case. We'll need to interview your clients, subpoena bank records, trace the money trail. It's going to take time, but I'm confident we can make charges stick." Patricia Wells, the forensic accountant, leaned forward. "There's something else you should know. I found evidence that they were planning to blame you for the missing money." "What do you mean?" Patricia pulled out another set of documents. "They created false email accounts in your name and sent fake invoices to clients. If anyone had discovered the fraud, you would have been the obvious suspect." The betrayal cut deeper than Zara had thought possible. It wasn't enough for Nathan and Rebecca to steal her money and her business. They had been prepared to send her to prison for their crimes. "Can you prove I wasn't involved?" Zara asked. "Absolutely," Patricia replied. "The metadata on the fake emails shows they were created from Rebecca's computer. Plus, you have alibis for most of the dates when the fraudulent charges were processed. You were either in client meetings or at business conferences." Agent Rodriguez stood up, gathering the folders. "Ms. Henderson, I want you to know that we're going to pursue this aggressively. White-collar criminals like your husband think they're too smart to get caught. I take great pleasure in proving them wrong." After the meeting, Zara sat in James's car in the parking garage, feeling emotionally drained but oddly exhilarated. For the first time since that devastating dinner, she felt like she was fighting back instead of just surviving. "Phase 1 complete," James said, starting the engine. "Now for Phase 2. Phase 2 involved informing their clients about the fraud. It was a risky move that could damage the business's reputation, but it was the right thing to do. More importantly, it would cut off Nathan and Rebecca's access to their primary source of income. Their first stop was Jameson Industries, their biggest client and the company that had first noticed the billing irregularities. Richard Jameson was a tough, no-nonsense businessman who had built his manufacturing company from nothing. He listened to their presentation with increasing anger. "Let me get this straight," he said when they finished. "Nathan Henderson and his girlfriend have been stealing from me for 8 months?" "Yes, sir," Zara replied. "We have documentation showing over $40,000 in fraudulent charges to your account alone. And they were planning to blame you for it? That appears to be their strategy." Richard Jameson was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands folded on his desk. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "Ms. Henderson, I've been in business for 35 years. I've dealt with thieves, liars, and con artists. But I've never seen anything this brazen." He stood up and extended his hand. "You have my full support. Whatever you need to nail these two, you've got it." The reaction was similar at their other client meetings. Business owners who had trusted Nathan and Rebecca felt personally betrayed. Several offered to testify against them. One client, the owner of a restaurant chain, actually laughed when he heard about the fake consulting company. Marketing Solutions Consulting? They couldn't even come up with a creative name for their scam. By the end of the day, they had contacted 12 clients representing over 80% of Henderson Marketing's revenue. Every single one agreed to cooperate with the federal investigation. Zara's phone had been buzzing with ignored calls from Nathan all afternoon. When they finally stopped for dinner, she had 17 missed calls and 9 voicemails. She played the messages on speaker so James could hear them. The first few were confused and concerned. Nathan couldn't understand why clients were calling to cancel their contracts. He wanted to know what Zara was doing, where she was, why she wasn't answering her phone. But as the day wore on, the messages became increasingly frantic. By the 5th voicemail, Nathan's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Zara, I know what you're doing and you need to stop. You're destroying everything we built together. Call me back so we can work this out." The 7th message was different. Rebecca's voice, cold and threatening. "This is insane, Zara. You're going to destroy the business and hurt innocent people. Nathan never did anything to deserve this. Call us back or you're going to regret it." The final message was Nathan again, and this time he wasn't trying to hide his desperation. "Zara, please. I know you're angry, but this isn't just about us anymore. Rebecca and I could go to prison. You're talking about federal charges. I'm begging you, please don't do this. I'll do anything. We can work out a settlement, give you whatever you want. Just please stop." James turned off the phone. Sounds like word is getting around. Good, Zara said, surprising herself with the hardness in her voice. Let them panic. There's something else we need to discuss, James said carefully. Your husband mentioned settlements in that last message. They're going to offer you money to drop the charges and walk away quietly. How much money? Probably everything. The house, the business, even Rebecca's personal assets. They'll try to make it worth your while to disappear. Zara thought about this as they drove through the city lights. 6 months ago, even 6 days ago, she might have been tempted. The money would be enough to start over somewhere else, build a new life without the stress and publicity of a federal trial. But that was before she knew the full extent of their betrayal. Before she realized they had been prepared to send her to prison for their crimes. Before she understood that they saw her as weak, someone who could be manipulated and discarded. I'm not interested in their money, she said finally. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. They're going to fight dirty, try to destroy your reputation, claim you're a bitter ex-wife making false accusations. Zara smiled, thinking of Agent Rodriguez's confident expression, of Richard Jameson's firm handshake, of the stack of evidence sitting in the federal building. Let them try. Her phone buzzed with a new text message. Nathan. We need to talk. Tonight. Please. Zara showed the message to James. What do you think? I think it's time to let them know exactly what they're up against. The coffee shop Nathan had chosen for their meeting was neutral territory, a busy Starbucks in the shopping district where they were unlikely to be overheard. Zara arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table in the back corner, positioning herself so she could see the entrance. Nathan walked in exactly on time, and Zara was shocked by his appearance. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept in days. This wasn't the confident, controlling man who had destroyed her life over dinner just a week ago. He spotted her immediately and hurried over, sliding into the chair across from her. Zara, thank God you came. I almost didn't, she replied honestly. Look, I know you're angry. Angry? Zara kept her voice low but let a hint of steel creep in. Nathan, angry doesn't begin to cover what I'm feeling. Okay, you're furious. I get it. But what you're doing, the federal investigation turning our clients against us, it's going to destroy everything. Everything was already destroyed. You made sure of that. Nathan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she had once found endearing. Now it just looked desperate. I made mistakes, I admit that. The affair was wrong, the way I handled the divorce was wrong. But the business stuff. Zara, you don't understand how complicated it got. Complicated? Zara leaned forward. Nathan, you stole over $300,000. You created fake companies, sent false invoices, and were planning to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. That's not complicated. That's criminal. We never meant for it to go that far, Nathan said, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. It started small, just a few billing adjustments to cover some cash flow problems. But then clients started paying without questioning the charges, and Rebecca said. Rebecca said what? She said we deserved it. That we were the ones doing all the work while you got half the credit. She said clients wouldn't even notice a few extra charges here and there. Zara stared at him in disbelief. So this is Rebecca's fault now. I'm not saying that. I'm saying she influenced my judgment. I wasn't thinking clearly. Where is Rebecca tonight, Nathan? Why isn't she here defending herself? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. She thought it would be better if we talked alone. Former spouses, you know? But Zara could see the truth in his expression. Rebecca had sent him to face the music alone while she distanced herself from the consequences of their actions. She's abandoning you, Zara said. She's not abandoning me. She's just being strategic. Strategic. Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nathan, do you realize that Rebecca has been using you this entire time? What are you talking about? Zara pulled out her phone and opened the folder of financial documents that James had shared with her. Look at these transaction records. Every major transfer, every false invoice, every illegal payment went through accounts that Rebecca controlled. Your name isn't on any of them. Nathan studied the phone screen, his face growing pale. That can't be right. It is right. Rebecca made sure that if the fraud was ever discovered, you would take the fall while she walked away clean. But we're partners? You're the front man, Nathan. The face of the operation while she pulled the strings behind the scenes. And now that everything's falling apart, she's letting you take all the blame. Nathan's hands were shaking as he handed the phone back. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. We're both in trouble now.
Are you? Zara asked.
Because I received an interesting phone call this afternoon. She didn't tell him that the call had been from James, who had been contacted by Rebecca's new attorney. Rebecca was apparently willing to testify against Nathan in exchange for immunity from prosecution. What kind of phone call? Let's just say that someone is trying very hard to save herself by throwing someone else under the bus. Nathan's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like the man she had fallen in love with years ago, vulnerable and lost. But then she remembered the fake emails, the planned betrayal, the cold calculation behind his actions.
Zara, please, he said.
I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you.
Drop the charges.
I'll give you everything. The house, the business, my savings. You can have it all. And what about our clients? What about the money you stole from them?
We'll pay it back. Every penny. I promise.
With what money, Nathan? You've already spent most of it. He was silent for a long moment. Then I'll figure something out. I'll get a loan, sell my car, whatever it takes. Zara studied his face, seeing the desperation there, the fear. A week ago she would have felt sorry for him. Now she felt nothing but cold satisfaction. It's too late for that, she said, standing up.
Zara, wait.
Nathan grabbed her wrist, and for a moment his grip was tight enough to hurt.
You can't do this to me. I loved you. We were married.
That has to count for something. She looked down at his hand on her wrist, then up at his face. You loved me so much that you planned to send me to prison for your crimes. I never would have let that happen.
Really?
Then why did you create those fake email accounts in my name? Why did you set up the false invoices to look like they came from me? Nathan released her wrist, his face crumbling. He had no answer because there was no answer. He had been willing to destroy her completely to save himself. You made your choice, Nathan. Now live with the consequences. As she walked away, she heard him call her name one last time, but she didn't turn around. Outside in the parking lot, she sat in her car for a moment, letting the adrenaline fade. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number.
This is Rebecca. We need to talk.
Tomorrow noon, Riverside Park. Come alone. Zara stared at the message for a long moment, then forwarded it to James with a note. She's getting desperate. His response came back immediately. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. I'll be nearby tomorrow. Zara drove home through the quiet suburban streets, past the house she had shared with Nathan, past the dreams they had built together. She didn't feel sad anymore. She felt strong. Rebecca wanted to talk? Fine. Zara was ready to listen to whatever lies and threats Nathan's former partner had to offer. But she was also ready to fight back. Riverside Park was nearly empty at noon on a Tuesday, just a few joggers and dog walkers enjoying the crisp autumn air. Zara found Rebecca sitting on a bench overlooking the water, dressed in an expensive black coat and designer sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She looked smaller than Zara remembered, more fragile, but there was still something dangerous about her posture, like a cornered animal preparing to strike. Thank you for coming, Rebecca said as Zara approached. She didn't stand up or offer any pleasantries. What do you want, Rebecca? To make you an offer. Zara remained standing, keeping the psychological advantage. I'm listening. Rebecca reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. There's a cashier's check in here for $500,000. It's yours if you drop the federal charges and walk away from the business. $500,000, Zara repeated. That's generous. Where did you get that kind of money?
I have investors.
People who believe in what Nathan and I are building. What you're building? Zara laughed. Rebecca, your business is dead. Our clients have all canceled their contracts. The feds have frozen your bank accounts. What exactly are you building with non-existent money? Rebecca's composure cracked slightly. We can get new clients. Start fresh. But not if you keep pursuing this vendetta.
Vendetta?
Zara's voice rose, and she had to remind herself to keep it down. A jogger was passing nearby, earbuds in, oblivious to their conversation. You stole from me, lied to me, planned to frame me for crimes I didn't commit, and you think this is about a vendetta? I think this is about a bitter ex-wife who can't accept that her husband fell in love with someone else. The words were calculated to hurt, but Zara felt nothing but contempt. Is that really what you think? That this is about jealousy? Isn't it? Rebecca stood up now, pulling off her sunglasses to reveal red-rimmed eyes. You had everything, Zara. A successful business, a beautiful home, a husband who provided for you. And you threw it all away because you couldn't stand to lose. I didn't throw anything away. You and Nathan destroyed it. Nathan made a mistake, Rebecca said, and there was real venom in her voice now. He should have divorced you quietly, taken his half of the business and started over with me. But he felt guilty. He wanted to be fair to you, make sure you were taken care of. Zara stared at her in amazement. Fair to me? Rebecca, he was planning to steal my half of the business and frame me for embezzlement. That was never the plan. Really? Then explain the fake email accounts. Explain the false invoices sent in my name. Rebecca's face flushed red. Those were insurance policies. In case you tried to fight the divorce settlement. Insurance policies, Zara repeated. You were going to send me to prison as an insurance policy. We would never have used them unless you forced our hand. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. They had been prepared to destroy her life completely, and Rebecca was presenting it as a reasonable business decision. You know what the really sad part is? Zara said. Nathan was ready to throw you under the bus last night. He told me the whole thing was your idea, that you influenced his judgment. Something flickered in Rebecca's eyes. He said that. He said you convinced him that you deserved the money, that I didn't do enough to earn my share of the business. He made it sound like you were the mastermind and he was just the weak fool who went along with it. That's not true. But Rebecca's voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Because I also know about your new attorney. The one who contacted the prosecutor's office offering to testify against Nathan in exchange for immunity. Rebecca went very still. How do you know about that? I know a lot of things, Rebecca. I know that you've been systematically destroying evidence, transferring money to offshore accounts, and preparing to disappear if things get too hot. I know that you never loved Nathan. You just saw him as a useful tool to steal a successful business. You don't know anything about what I feel. Don't I? Zara leaned closer, close enough to see the fear in Rebecca's eyes. You want to know what I think? I think you're a con artist who got in over her head. You targeted Nathan because he was successful and gullible. You made him believe that I was holding him back, that he deserved more than what we had built together. Nathan came to me, Rebecca said, but her voice was barely a whisper. Maybe he did. But you encouraged him. You fed his resentments, made him believe that stealing from our clients was justified. And now that everything's falling apart, you're trying to save yourself by betraying him. Rebecca sank back down onto the bench, the envelope with the cashier's check falling from her hands onto the ground. You don't understand, she said. Nathan was never going to leave you. He talked about it, fantasized about it, but he was too weak to actually do it. I had to push him. So you admit it. I admit that I showed him what his life could be like if he had the courage to take what he wanted. And what about me? What about the fact that I was a real person with real feelings who didn't deserve to be destroyed for your ambitions? Rebecca looked up at her, and for a moment her mask slipped completely. Zara saw the truth underneath. A cold, calculating woman who saw other people as obstacles to be removed or tools to be used. You were in the way, Rebecca said simply. It was the most honest thing she had said all day. Zara picked up the envelope from the ground and handed it back to Rebecca. Keep your money. You're going to need it for legal fees. As she walked away, Rebecca called after her. You're making a mistake, Zara. I won't go down alone. If I'm going to prison, I'm taking Nathan with me. Zara didn't turn around. I'm counting on it. That evening, she met James at his office to review the recording she had made of their conversation. Rebecca's admission that she had pushed Nathan to betray his wife, combined with her casual acknowledgement that Zara had been in the way, would be devastating evidence at trial. She's more dangerous than Nathan, James observed. But also more reckless. She just confessed to conspiracy charges on tape. What happens now? Now we wait. The FBI is moving forward with formal charges. Your husband and Rebecca Thompson will be arrested within the week. Zara nodded, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. A month ago, she had been planning Nathan's birthday party. Now she was helping to plan his arrest. Are you okay? James asked, and there was genuine concern in his voice. I think I am, Zara said, and realized it was true. For the first time since this started, I think I'm actually okay. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over, it said. Zara showed it to James, who grimaced. Rebecca? Probably. But you know what? She's right. It's not over. But it's going to end the way it should have from the beginning. With justice. With the truth. The federal courthouse in downtown was buzzing with activity on the morning of Nathan Henderson and Rebecca Thompson's arraignment. Local news crews had gathered on the steps, drawn by the story of corporate fraud and betrayal that had captured the city's attention. Zara sat in the gallery behind the prosecutor's table, flanked by James and several of their former clients who had come to witness justice being served. She wore a simple navy blue dress and minimal jewelry, wanting to project professionalism rather than vengeance. Nathan was brought in first, handcuffed and wearing an orange jumpsuit that made his skin look sallow. He had lost weight in the 3 weeks since his arrest, and his usually perfect hair hung limp around his face. When he spotted Zara in the gallery, their eyes met for a moment. She saw desperation there and perhaps regret, but no real remorse. Rebecca entered next, also in handcuffs, though she had somehow managed to maintain more of her composure. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she kept her chin raised as if defying anyone to judge her. She didn't look at Zara at all. The charges were read aloud by the clerk: conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. 18 counts in total, each carrying potential prison sentences that could add up to decades behind bars. Nathan's attorney, a public defender who looked overwhelmed by the complexity of the case, entered a plea of not guilty. Rebecca's high-priced lawyer did the same, though with more confidence. But Zara knew the truth. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Bank records, email communications, client testimony, and Rebecca's own recorded admissions had built an airtight case. The question wasn't whether they would be convicted, but how long they would spend in prison. After the arraignment, Zara met with Patricia Wells, the forensic accountant, to review the final damage assessment. "We've recovered about 60% of the stolen money," Patricia explained. "Some of it was already spent on personal expenses, but most was sitting in various accounts waiting to be transferred overseas." "What about the clients?" "They'll get most of their money back plus damages. The federal court has agreed to prioritize restitution in any plea agreements." "Plea agreements?" James leaned forward. "Rebecca's attorney approached us yesterday. She wants to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. She's willing to testify against Nathan, provide detailed information about how the fraud was carried out, and help recover any remaining stolen funds." Zara considered this. What would Nathan get? If Rebecca testifies against him, probably 15 to 20 years. Without her cooperation, he's looking at 8 to 10. And Rebecca? With cooperation and no prior record, maybe 5 years. She'd served 3 with good behavior. The numbers felt abstract, like they were discussing strangers rather than people who had shared her life. But Zara found that she didn't feel the satisfaction she had expected. Justice was being served, but it felt hollow somehow. "There's something else," James said carefully. "Nathan's attorney wants to meet with you." "What for?" "He's hoping you'll speak at his sentencing hearing. Ask for leniency based on your previous relationship." Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He wants me to help him after what he did? Apparently he believes that deep down you still care about him." "He's wrong. I told his attorney that, but they want to ask you personally." Zara thought about this as they walked through the courthouse corridors. Nathan was desperate enough to believe that the woman he had betrayed and tried to frame would help save him from the consequences of his actions. The audacity was remarkable. "Set up the meeting," she said finally. "Are you sure? I want to look him in the eye one more time. I want him to hear me say no." The meeting took place 3 days later in a small conference room at the courthouse. Nathan's attorney, a tired-looking man named Morrison, sat across from Zara and James while Nathan waited in a holding cell nearby. "Ms. Henderson," Morrison began, "I know this is difficult for you, but I'm hoping you can find it in your heart to show mercy." "Mercy?" Zara kept her voice level. "Your client tried to destroy my life. He made terrible mistakes, I won't deny that. But he's not an evil man. He was influenced by Rebecca Thompson, manipulated into making decisions he would never have made on his own. So this is all Rebecca's fault? Not all of it. Nathan takes responsibility for his actions. But he was psychologically manipulated by a woman who saw him as a tool for her own criminal ambitions." James leaned forward. "Even if that's true, it doesn't excuse embezzling over $300,000. "Of course not. But it might explain it. Nathan Henderson was a successful businessman with no prior criminal record. He built a legitimate company and employed a dozen people. One bad relationship shouldn't define the rest of his life." Zara listened to the lawyer's pitch with growing amazement. They were asking her to see Nathan as a victim, someone who deserved sympathy rather than punishment. "Can I see him?" she asked finally. Morrison looked surprised. "You want to speak with Nathan personally?" "Yes. I'll arrange it." 20 minutes later, Zara sat across from Nathan in a small visitor's room. He was wearing a standard prison uniform, and his hands were shackled to a chain around his waist. The confident businessman who had destroyed her life over dinner was gone, replaced by a broken man facing decades in prison. "Zara," he said, and his voice cracked. "Thank you for coming." "Don't thank me yet. I know you probably hate me." "I don't hate you, Nathan. I feel nothing for you at all." The words hit him like a physical blow. She could see him struggling to process the idea that she had moved beyond anger into complete indifference. "I loved you," he said. "I know I did a terrible job of showing it, but I really did love you. Did you love me when you were stealing money from our clients? Did you love me when you were setting up those fake email accounts to frame me? Did you love me when you were planning to send me to prison for your crimes? That was never supposed to happen. Rebecca said we needed insurance, but I would never have let them use it against you. Rebecca said Rebecca convinced you, Rebecca made you do it?" Zara shook her head. "When are you going to take responsibility for your own choices?" "I am taking responsibility. That's why I'm here." "No, Nathan. You're here because you got caught. If the fraud had never been discovered, you'd be living happily with Rebecca while I rotted in prison for crimes I didn't commit." Nathan was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "Please, Zara. I know I don't deserve it, but please help me. I can't survive 20 years in prison." Zara studied his face, remembering the man she had married, the dreams they had shared, the life they had built together. Then she thought about the fake emails, the stolen money, the careful planning that had gone into her destruction. "You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me," she said, standing up. "Zara, please." "Goodbye, Nathan." As she walked out of the prison, leaving Nathan's desperate pleas behind her, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in months: peace. The man who had tried to destroy her was facing the consequences of his actions, and she had played no part in saving him from them. Justice wasn't always satisfying, but it was necessary. And it was finally being served. 6 months after Nathan's arrest, Zara stood in the reception area of her new office space, watching the workers install the sign that would hang above the entrance: Sterling Consulting Group. The name was simple, professional, and most importantly, completely hers. The office was smaller than what she and Nathan had shared, but it was bright and modern, with large windows overlooking the city center and enough space for the 6 employees she had already hired. 3 of them were former clients who had been so impressed with how she handled the fraud situation that they wanted to work with her directly. "It looks perfect," said James, who had been helping her with the legal aspects of starting the new business. Over the past months, their professional relationship had gradually developed into something more personal, built on mutual respect and shared values rather than the passion and intensity that had characterized her marriage to Nathan. "I can't believe it's really happening," Zara admitted, adjusting the collar of her new blazer. She had lost 15 pounds since the divorce, not from stress but from taking better care of herself, eating regular meals and going to the gym. Her natural hair was longer now, styled in a way that made her feel confident and professional. "You deserve this," James said simply. "You worked for it." The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of activity. Nathan had eventually pled guilty to all charges and been sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Rebecca had cooperated with prosecutors and received a sentence of 4 years, though she would likely serve only 2.5 with good behavior. The sentences had made local news, but Zara had declined all interview requests. She wasn't interested in being known as the wronged wife who brought down her cheating husband. She wanted to be known as a businesswoman who had built something new from the ashes of betrayal. "The Johnson meeting is in an hour," James reminded her, checking his phone. "Are you ready?" Johnson Industries was potentially their biggest client, a manufacturing company looking for a complete rebranding campaign. Zara had spent weeks preparing for this presentation, and landing the account would give Sterling Consulting the financial stability to grow. "I'm ready," she said, and meant it. The meeting went better than she had dared hope. Thomas Johnson, the company's CEO, was impressed not only with her proposals but with the story of how she had rebuilt her career after exposing corporate fraud. "That takes guts," he said as they wrapped up the presentation. "A lot of people would have taken the money and disappeared. The fact that you fought back tells me everything I need to know about your character." "Thank you, sir. One question though. Some of our people are going to ask about your ex-husband's conviction. How do you want to handle that?" Zara had prepared for this question. "I'm happy to discuss it if anyone has concerns. I was the victim of fraud, not the perpetrator. The FBI investigation cleared me of any wrongdoing, and I helped recover the stolen money for our clients. If anything, it demonstrates my commitment to ethical business practices." Johnson nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the right answer. You've got the account, Ms. Henderson. As they left the Johnson Industries building, James took her hand. How does it feel to be officially successful again? Different than I expected, Zara admitted. When I was married to Nathan, success felt like something that could be taken away from me. Now it feels like something I earned myself. They walked through downtown as the afternoon sun cast long shadows between the buildings. Zara's phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. 3 more companies called asking about presentations. Your calendar is filling up fast. I have something to tell you, James said as they reached his car. Good news or bad news? Good news, I think. I've been offered a partnership at the firm. Zara stopped walking. James, that's wonderful. You've been working toward this for years. There's one catch. The partnership requires me to relocate to the firm's Chicago office. The words hit her like a cold splash of water. Just as her life was coming together, just as she was beginning to trust again, another important relationship was being threatened by circumstances beyond her control. When? She asked. 3 months. But Zara, I need you to know that I'm not taking it. What? Why not? Because I'm not leaving you. Not now, not when we're just beginning to figure out what this could be. Zara stared at him, amazed. Nathan had been willing to destroy her for his own advancement. James was willing to sacrifice his career advancement for her. You can't do that, she said. This is your dream job. You're my dream, he replied simply. The job is just work. But Zara was already shaking her head. No. You take the partnership. Zara? I'm serious. You take the partnership and I'll figure out how to make this work. You'd move to Chicago? Zara thought about it. Sterling Consulting was still small enough to relocate. Chicago had a thriving business community that could use her services. And she had learned that running away from change was less important than moving toward the right person. I'd move to Chicago, she confirmed. James pulled her into his arms right there on the sidewalk, and when he kissed her, Zara felt something she had never experienced with Nathan, complete trust. This was a man who would sacrifice for her, who saw her as an equal partner rather than a possession to be managed. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure. But I have one condition. Anything. We do this as equals. Partners in every sense of the word. I won't be the girlfriend who follows you to a new city. I'll be the businesswoman who chooses to expand her operations. James laughed, and the sound was full of joy and possibility. Deal. As they drove back to her office, Zara thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. A year ago, she had been Nathan's wife, defined by her relationship to someone else. 6 months ago, she had been a victim of fraud and betrayal. Today, she was Zara Sterling, successful entrepreneur and equal partner in a relationship built on mutual respect. The name Henderson was part of her past now, but it no longer defined her future. Her phone rang as they pulled into the parking lot. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. Zara Sterling, she answered professionally. Miss Sterling, this is Carol Martinez from Business Weekly magazine. We're doing a feature story on entrepreneurs who've overcome adversity to build successful companies. Would you be interested in an interview? Zara looked at James, who was grinning at her obvious success. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified of media attention, worried about how it might affect her reputation. Now she saw it as an opportunity to inspire other women who might be facing their own betrayals. I'd be very interested, she said. Excellent. Can we schedule something for next week? Next week would be perfect. As she hung up, James squeezed her hand. Ready to be famous? Ready to be myself, Zara corrected. Finally. 1 year after that devastating anniversary dinner, Zara stood on the balcony of her new Chicago apartment, looking out over Lake Michigan as the sun set behind the city skyline. The view was spectacular, all golden light and reflected water, but what made her smile was the stack of business magazines on the coffee table behind her. The cover of Business Weekly featured a photograph of her in the Sterling Consulting offices, with the headline Rising from Betrayal, How Zara Sterling Built Success from Scandal. Inside was a 4-page feature about her journey from fraud victim to successful entrepreneur, complete with photos of her team and testimonials from satisfied clients. The article makes you sound like a superhero, James said, joining her on the balcony with 2 glasses of wine. I don't feel like a superhero, Zara replied, accepting the glass. I feel like someone who finally learned what she was capable of. The Chicago office of Sterling Consulting had exceeded every projection. They now employed 12 people and had contracts with some of the city's biggest companies. Zara had been invited to speak at 3 business conferences in the past month, and Harvard Business School had asked her to participate in a case study about corporate fraud recovery. "I got some news today," James said, settling into the chair beside her. "Good news?" Nathan was denied parole. He'll serve his full sentence. Zara felt nothing at this announcement, which surprised her. A year ago, she would have felt either satisfaction or sadness. Now Nathan seemed like a character from a book she had read long ago, interesting but irrelevant to her current life. What about Rebecca? Released last month. She's working as a waitress in Phoenix under her maiden name. That did spark a reaction, though not the one Zara had expected. Instead of anger or vindication, she felt something almost like pity. Rebecca had been brilliant and ambitious, but she had channeled those qualities into destruction rather than creation. Now she was starting over with nothing, no reputation, no connections, no future beyond whatever she could build with her own hands. It was, Zara reflected, exactly what Rebecca deserved. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Nathan had just asked for a divorce honestly?" James asked. "If he had split the business fairly and started over with Rebecca legitimately?" "I think about that sometimes," Zara admitted. "We probably would have both been fine. We might even have remained friends eventually. But then you never would have built Sterling Consulting. And I never would have met you." James raised his glass. "To silver linings. To second chances," Zara corrected, touching her glass to his. As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights come on across the city, Zara's phone buzzed with an email notification. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. The message was from a woman named Patricia Kim, and the subject line read, "Thank you for inspiring me." Zara opened the email and read, "Dear Miss Sterling, I saw your interview on the news last night about overcoming business fraud. I wanted you to know that your story gave me the courage to report my own boss for embezzlement. I've been gathering evidence for months but was afraid to come forward because I thought no one would believe me. Seeing how you turned your situation into something positive made me realize that staying silent was worse than fighting back. I contacted the FBI this morning. Thank you for showing me that victims don't have to stay victims. Sincerely, Patricia Kim." Zara showed the email to James, who read it with a growing smile. "Looks like you're changing more lives than just your own," he said. "One email," Zara said, but she was touched by the message. "It won't be just one. That magazine article is going to inspire a lot of people." He was right. Over the next few weeks, Zara received dozens of emails from women who had been betrayed by business partners, cheating spouses, or corrupt employers. Some wanted advice, others just wanted to share their stories with someone who would understand. Zara found herself spending more and more time responding to these messages, offering encouragement and practical advice about dealing with fraud investigations and rebuilding careers. When Harvard Business School approached her about teaching a seminar on business ethics and fraud recovery, she said yes immediately. "I think I'm becoming an accidental activist," she told James one evening as she finished responding to another batch of emails. "There are worse things to be," he replied. "I know. It's just, a year ago I couldn't imagine talking about what happened to anyone, let alone teaching classes about it. People change when they realize their struggles can help others." "Speaking of change," Zara said, turning to face him with a nervous smile, "I have something to tell you. Should I be worried?" "I don't think so. I've been asked to write a book." James sat up straighter. "About what happened with Nathan? About building a business after betrayal. The publisher thinks there's a market for it, especially among women entrepreneurs." "That's amazing. Are you going to do it?" "I want to. But it would mean reliving everything that happened, putting the most painful parts of my life on display for strangers to read." James took her hands in his. "A year ago you were ready to disappear quietly rather than fight back. Now you're considering writing a book about your experience. What changed?" Zara thought about this. "I realized that my story isn't really about Nathan and Rebecca. It's about what I did after they tried to destroy me. It's about choosing to fight instead of giving up." "And you think that story could help other people?" "I know it could. Every email I get proves that." "Then you have your answer." 6 months later, Zara sat in a bookstore in downtown Chicago, signing copies of Rising Strong, A Woman's Guide to Rebuilding After Betrayal. The line of people waiting to meet her stretched around the block, mostly women but some men too, all drawn by the story of someone who had refused to let betrayal define her future. "Thank you for writing this," said a woman named Michelle, placing a worn copy of the book on the signing table. "My husband cleaned out our business accounts and disappeared with his secretary 6 months ago. I thought my life was over. What do you think now?" Zara asked, signing the title page. "I think it's just beginning." As the evening wound down and the last customer left, Zara looked around the bookstore with amazement. A year and a half ago, she had been sitting in a restaurant having her world destroyed. Tonight, she was a published author, successful entrepreneur, and inspiration to women across the country. Ready to go home? James asked, helping her pack up the remaining books. More than ready. As they walked to the car, Zara's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. For a moment, her heart skipped, remembering the threatening messages from Rebecca. But when she opened it, she smiled. Saw you on the news tonight. Congratulations on the book. You always were stronger than I gave you credit for. Nathan. She showed the message to James, who frowned. Are you going to respond? Zara considered it for a moment, then deleted the message without replying. Nathan was part of her past, and she had learned the importance of not looking backward when moving forward. There's nothing to say, she told James. He's right that I'm stronger than he thought. But he's wrong if he thinks I care about his opinion anymore. As they drove through the city streets toward home, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of her world had actually been the beginning of her real life. She had learned that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined, that strength wasn't about avoiding pain but about transforming it into something meaningful. Do you ever miss the old life? James asked as they pulled into their parking garage. No, Zara replied without hesitation. The old life was built on lies. This one is built on truth. Even the painful parts? Especially the painful parts. They taught me who I really am. As they took the elevator up to their apartment, Zara thought about the woman she had been 18 months ago. Nathan's wife, dependent on someone else for her identity and security. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more confident, and infinitely more capable. The apartment was quiet and peaceful, filled with furniture they had chosen together and artwork that reflected both their tastes. It was a life built on partnership rather than deception, on mutual respect rather than control. Zara's phone rang as they settled in for the night. The caller ID showed the name of a literary agent in New York. Miss Sterling? This is Amanda Peterson from the Peterson Agency. I've been following your story, and I'd like to discuss representing you for your next book. My next book? Zara laughed. I just finished promoting this one. I think there's a market for a follow-up. Maybe something about building successful partnerships, both personal and professional. The complete guide to creating a life of integrity after experiencing betrayal. Zara looked at James, who was grinning at her obvious success. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined writing one book about her experience. Now someone was asking for a second one. I'd be very interested in discussing that, she said. As she hung up the phone, James pulled her into his arms. So what's next for the famous author and entrepreneur? More of the same, Zara said. Building something real with someone I trust. Sounds perfect to me. Outside their windows, Chicago sparkled in the darkness, full of possibilities and promise. Somewhere in a federal prison, Nathan was serving his sentence for the crimes that had destroyed their marriage. Somewhere in Phoenix, Rebecca was starting over with nothing. But here in this apartment, in this life built on honesty and mutual respect, Zara Sterling was exactly where she belonged. Strong, successful, and finally, completely free. The revenge she had taken wasn't dramatic or violent. It was simply living well, building something better, and refusing to let betrayal define her future. And in the end, that was the most powerful victory of all.